It's never fun to make a video about a conflict that is happening within your own community. Like maybe it's the Aquarius in me. I'm always idealistic, I want peace, and I don't like confrontation. Is that what Aquariuses are? Anyway, to get you up to speed, what happened was there were a couple of WASIAN meetups that happened in America quite recently. For context, WASIANs refer to people who have one white parent and one parent from any Asian descent. These WASIAN meetups caused a lot of controversy. Why, you might ask? Well, because making it a specifically WASIAN meetup meant excluding other mixed Asian identities. Like what about the people who have one black parent or people who have one Latinx parent? But not only that, from the crowd that was seen in the recap videos, there weren't a lot of people from South Asian or Southeast Asian descent. They're mostly people from East Asian descent. There are a lot of TikToks that explained why this was a big issue. I will put those videos in the comment section below because they're very informative and they're actually made by mixed Asian people who can provide a valuable perspective on the situation. I'm not mixed Asian, but I think regardless of your ethnicity, this is still something impacting the community, and it's still important for everyone to reflect together and consider the ways in which we can strive to be better as a community. Before we proceed, I want to give a disclaimer. From the videos I've seen of WASIANs attending the meetups, it seems like a lot of them enjoyed the event and found belonging from them. However, a part of the larger community is still hurt, and these two truths can coexist. Nonetheless, it is important for us to reflect and have these maybe uncomfortable conversations to practice empathy to understand where other people are coming from. Otherwise, how else will we grow? So in this video, I want to discuss reasons why I think these WASIAN meetups cause a lot of hurt, and why if we don't reflect and have these conversations, it might cause even further harm. Part 1. The model minority. In mainstream media, we've been seeing a lot of success from the WASIAN community. On the sports side, we have Alyssa Liu and Aileen Gu. Then for screen and television, you have Lola Tung and Hudson Williams. Then on the side of music, you have people like Megan from Cat's Eye, Leve, and Olivia Rodrigo. Overall, it's great to see Asians being acknowledged for their hard work, and it's true, we are hardworking. But I would like to highlight this term or myth called the model minority. It's a stereotype often associated with the Asian community. Tensho is a resource that documents the testimonies of Japanese Americans who were unjustly incarcerated during World War II, and they have a great page that details the timeline of how the model minority myth came to be. It seemed like the idea of a model minority is cemented around 1960s, where there were tensions about civil rights. On Densho's page, it said, the US engages in the Cold War and devastating physical wars in Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos, claiming to fight communism and bring democracy to the rest of the world. But the growth of the civil rights and ethnic power movements puts a spotlight on racism and discrimination at home, and undermines American claims to greatness abroad. Politicians and the media popularized the idea of protesting black and brown Americans as problem minorities, and supposedly passive, hardworking Chinese and Japanese Americans as a model minority. Some Asian Americans buy into this idea, like Hokobe Mainichi editor Howard Imazeki, who stirs up controversy with a 1963 editorial calling on black Americans to better themselves before asking for equal rights. The existence of a model minority indicates there is the existence of minorities who are not model. After all, how else will these behaviors be measured? What is the standard? What are we comparing these behaviors against? And these people who are not model are called problem minorities, and they are often black or brown people. This raises a lot of problems because of the way that for one minority group to be considered good, other groups have to be punched down. An article in New York Times by William Peterson talked about this. This article was published on January 9, 1966, and it's got a lot of slurs. It's quite crazy reading it, actually. Peterson wrote that problem minorities were created from factors like poor health, poor education, low income, high crime rate, unstable family patterns, and so on and on. And these problem minorities tend to be black people. However, the article also highlighted that there are people who rise above the occasion, overcoming the same challenges, and these people are the Japanese Americans. By any criterion of good citizenship that we choose, the Japanese Americans are better than any other group in our society, including native-born whites. They have established this remarkable record, moreover, by their own almost totally unaided effort. The article kept propping up the Japanese American community, but in lifting this community up, the black community is being punched down. Unfairly so, I might add. The idea of the model minority is inherently harmful. It not only sets up unrealistic expectations for a minority group, but by perpetuating a model minority group, another minority group has to be devalued. Over the course of time, the model minority label has become become quite synonymous to this perception that Asians are always hardworking, that they won't talk back because part of the hard work is just doing the work and not complaining. We're always submissive and agreeable, and that's not true at all. So it feels like for Asians to be valued as human beings in these circumstances, in this society, it's more about how much hard work you can give in service to other people, how much you can fulfill this role of being a model minority. It becomes less about you being valuable because you are a human being deserving of love and care, flaws and all. It becomes more about like what can you do in service to other people. It becomes more about like whether or not you can fulfill this stereotype in order for these people to acknowledge your existence, if that makes sense. And because this is a term popularized by white people, it almost feels like Asian Americans have to perform to white people to meet these white people's standards in order to be deemed worthy. It's like white people have the power to determine your worth and ultimately your place within the community. Part 2. The idealized whiteness. Growing up in an Asian country, I'm not going to lie, there is a lot of obsession with whiteness or being in proximity to whiteness. I remember distinctly moments where me and my friends would hold up our hands and compare our skin to see who is fairer and lighter. I'm actually ashamed to admit this, but I used to be sad that I'm darker than some of my friends. But the thing is, like, I'm not even tanned. But I had this unconscious bias that being darker is bad, that I'm not as valuable as people who have fairer skin, which isn't true at all. And I'm unlearning this unconscious bias that I have because the community I grew up with really hammered home this idea that if you have darker skin, you are of less value. And I'm trying to stop thinking like that. I also had friends who wanted big blue eyes, so they wear these colored contact lenses that can also make your eyes bigger. But beyond that, some people even went to like Korea or Malaysia to get double eyelid surgeries to achieve the same result. Asians also want noses with higher nose bridges because most Asians have smaller noses. My mom has a high nose bridge and a lot of people pointed that out and envied her for it. Overall, there is an obsession with having features of white people, and that's also because media perpetuates this idea that white features are the markers of beauty. And it doesn't help that the community that surrounds us as well really tried to ingrain this idea within us as children. And it is bad. And of course, we need to unlearn it. And I think moving abroad and living among more people, meeting more people of different backgrounds and different cultures, it really allowed me to recognize the bad perceptions and myths and stereotypes that I had that the people back home kept trying to ingrain within us. That's the thing, right? Like, you need to be open-minded and you need to be conscious in trying to unlearn the things that you have been learning since you were young. I feel like a lot of Asian people idealize whiteness, whether they want to have features that somewhat resembles whiteness or they want to be in proximity to whiteness. I have a distant family member who married a white man, and many people in our family find that so amusing and they try to flatter him a lot more often than not. A lot of Asian people also want Asian babies because they say that Asian babies will always turn out gorgeous with big eyes and pretty noses and fair skin. But point being, whiteness is always put on a pedestal. It's always desired. Plus, being associated with whiteness is also considered a marker of success, power, and authority. And this is the dominant perception in many Asian countries, to the extent that in China, there is this thing called white monkey jobs. This is a rent-a-foreigner industry where white people are hired by businesses to show up at parties. Then these white people will pretend to be employees in high positions of power to lend credibility, because if you have white people in your company, then you made it. Then you're international because you have a white person on your team. David Borenstein, an Oscar winner for the documentary Mr. Nobody Against Putin, also did documentaries about this rent-a-foreigner industry in China. He was interviewed for Vice by Annalise Chen about this industry and its relationship with smaller cities and its economy. They ended this interview with this exchange. Chen: essentially, these companies are using white faces as masks of power and authority. Borenstein: I know it sounds insane, but any discussion of rent-a-foreigners is necessarily a discussion of the nature of the spectacle, China's national identity, and the utter absurdity of modern finance capitalism. What good does it do to just point out the surface level absurdity of rent-a-foreigners? The more rewarding discovery is to deep dive into the absurd, to take the absurd seriously, to see what the absurd means to the people perpetuating it. If you take this route, you will come to a far more gratifying conclusion. Absurdity resides in the heart of many of the things that we perceive to be deadly serious. Part 3. Who can determine a person's value? Let's think about Borenstein's quote. We can take a look at the WASIAN meetups and be like, what's the harm in this? They're just meetups. But what lies underneath this? Because there's so much more to unpack. For me, I think it reveals this unconscious bias that a lot of Asians have towards white people and the way Asians often prop up the white community. And this is something that we have to unlearn. Even for myself, I'm trying to unlearn so many damaging rhetorics that I grew up with. And I know for some Asians, their identity is very complicated. They often feel excluded from the Asian community because they feel like they get lumped with white people instead. But at the same time, this event also hurt a lot of people within the larger Asian community because it feels like the Asians are clinging to their proximity to whiteness and propping up that side of them. And the implication is bad because past history showed that white people have done a lot to harm the Asian community and other communities, mostly by dictating how our worth should be measured. They have their own standards on what they deem to be valuable, and it is our job to meet that standards in order to have space. So, by excluding other mixed Asian identities and using whiteness as a requirement on whether you can enter a space, that hits a little close to home. Like, I'm not trying to be dramatic or I'm not trying to be over the top, but why are we segregating spaces? In the Densho page that explores the evolution of the model minority term, it also highlights the complicity of Asian people in perpetuating the stereotype. And a lot of this comes at the cost of harming black and brown bodies, and it's incredibly sad, and I don't like reading it, obviously. Like, it's very uncomfortable, but I also think we need to reflect on this too. We also need to consider the ways in which there is favoritism directed towards people of East Asian descent as well. If you say Asian, the first thing people think of will most likely be Japanese, Chinese, or Korean people. There has always been this issue where Southeast Asian and South Asian people are considered to be the lesser Asians. It can be attributed to the model minority myth too that mostly props up people of East Asian descent or the colorism that Asian people have for their own community. Which, I don't know, I guess can also be tied back to our obsession with whiteness. I do have to acknowledge, this whole thing is not that simple. Things like this are never a straight line. Systematic issues are always complicated to discuss because sometimes people have to play by these rules in order to survive. I wouldn't say that the Japanese American community set out to be called the model minority in that New York Times article. They were probably just trying to survive in a foreign country and they got attention and the label just stuck. It might also be easy to just say, hey, we shouldn't let white people dictate our existence, but the system, as much as it's trying to course correct, does have more white people in positions of power or as gatekeepers, and that gives them the power to indeed judge us and determine our worth. And as a result, because the cycle just keeps like cycling, I don't know, I'm blaming capitalism because capitalism is always at the scene of the crime. Anyway, it becomes this instance of like, which one is the lesser evil? Obviously, there are some instances where it is obviously wrong, but I also empathize with the people who have to play along because more often than not, maybe unconsciously, we're also playing into the system because we have no other choice, even without realizing it. But I guess that is the dream, right? Like to be able to exist and be in this space, but not at the expense of hurting other communities. This is where conversations and reflections should happen, especially within the community. Because like it as not, for the Asians, your main community will be the Asian community. I feel like, despite the Asians having this proximity to whiteness, in the eyes of white people, they are still going to be considered Asian. An episode of Blackish delved into the character played by Tracee Ellis Ross, who is half black and half white. She has a complicated relationship with her identity, and the episode attempts to explore that. One of the main talking points from the episode is that despite being mixed race, she will be viewed as black, and I feel this is also what happens with the Asians. As part of the Heated Rivalry promotional cycle, the stars of the show, Hudson Williams and Connor Story, read thirst tweets for BuzzFeed. At the end of the video, BuzzFeed showed this image of these carrots that are clearly meant to be stand-in for dongs. And the carrot that is meant to represent Hudson Williams' character's dong is the smallest because, the stereotype is that Asian men have small dongs. Regardless of whether or not you are Asian, in the eyes of a lot of people, when it comes down to it, you will be Asian, and they will still apply these stereotypes associated with the Asian community to you. Conclusion. This is a very complex video for me. It took double the time to write the script because it seemed like a lot of people really liked being part of the WASIAN meetup. I acknowledge that Asians do have a complicated relationship with their identity, and I don't want to be dismissive of how they feel. I don't want to dismiss their glee and joy when they were with their peers. In the same Blackish episode that I mentioned earlier, the thing is, with Tracee Ellis Ross's character character, right? Despite being mixed race, she is viewed as black by the people around her, but within the black community, she is viewed as white. Like, that is the complicated relationship, right? Like, externally, they might be viewed as black or Asian, but then within their own community, they're kind of also sometimes singled out for their whiteness. And that's why I don't want this video to feel like I'm punching down on the WASIAN community, because I do acknowledge that you guys do have a lot of things that you struggle with as well. And I think damage has been done, but I also see where you guys came from. But I also think it's equally important to listen to why mixed Asians have problems with these meetups. Like how these events feel like they prop up whiteness, and given our complex history with white people, like how white people had a history of deeming our worth, it does feel a bit weird that whiteness is a measure, in this case, on whether or not you can enter a space. And if we were to analyze this more, I feel like this reveals so much about our unconscious bias where we prop up and idealize whiteness, and because of that, we have to keep checking this unconscious bias. Again, I know for a lot of WASIANs, these events meant a lot to them and it created this sense of community, but there is impact caused by the event. So we need to open up a discussion and reflect and consider what we can do better as a community. I guess overall, the best thing I can say is we need to create spaces for all sorts of identity and welcome each other, but also be open and check your unconscious biases. Also open up the space to have these sorts of conversations so we can figure out what we can do better. But on the flip side of that as well, we need to have this patience and grace with other people too as they try to unlearn things, because those things take time. This is a sensitive topic and I hope I've done an okay job in providing information and analysis despite not being part of the mixed Asian community. However, I would like to know what you guys think. Did you know about these events, these meetups? Do you know about the model minority trope? Do you agree or do you not agree with me? Let me know in the comments, and please be civil and nice to each other down there. If you like this video or found it helpful, please leave it a like, comment on it, and share the video too. And consider subscribing to the channel for more video essays, commentaries, random other videos. Thank you for watching this video and for letting me be part of your day. I won't keep you guys here for too long. I do have to go to the bathroom now. Have a good night, day, dusk, dawn, middle of the night, middle of the day, afternoon, evening, all the time zones, whatever time zones you guys are in. Don't forget to have supper, dinner, lunch, breakfast, snacks, and don't forget to have a good time too. Okay, I'll see you guys next week. Bye!